The woman on the platform didn't move. Not a flinch, not a tremor. Just that gray shawl draped over her like a shadow that refused to loosen its grip. The townsfolk kept their distance as though she carried plague. Boots scraped backward. Someone muttered, cursed. Another spat, seen her do which in. Even the drunk on the steps of the saloon sobered long enough to turn his face away. Still she stood, silent under a scorching sun that glared down without mercy. The auctioneer sighed, brushing sweat from his wrinkled brow. Folks, someone's out to take her. Law's clear. She can't walk the frontier alone. A hard gust tore at the woman's shawl, revealing nothing, yet somehow making the crowd shrink further. The platform creaked. A baby cried. A dog whimpered and bolted under a wagon. Then the murmurs stopped. Bootsteps, slow, steady, crossed the hard-packed dirt. The crowd parted without being asked. Elias Thorne, tall, dust-worn, hat brim pulled low, his coat whipping behind him like he carried a storm on his shoulders. People whispered his name with caution, even respect. Others glanced at the revolver holsters at his hips, empty now, but carrying the memory of years they'd spent full. Elias didn't look at the crowd. His eyes were pinned on the woman. He stopped at the base of the platform. You sure? The auctioneer whispered, leaning close. No one else wants her for a reason. Elias lifted one gold coin between two fingers. It flashed in the sunlight. Sold, the auctioneer said quickly, almost desperately, before anyone could argue. To Mr. Thorne. A ripple of uneasy tension ran through the crowd. The woman turned toward Elias, slowly, like she feared the motion itself might break her. The shawl remained drawn high, hiding every feature. Elias stepped onto the platform. The air felt tighter up close, like the heat was holding its breath. She raised her hand, slender, steady, and touched the edge of her shawl. Wait, the auctioneer began, but she was already lifting it. Just a little, just enough. Elias froze. His boot caught on the plank behind him, and he steadied himself without blinking. The color drained clean from his face. His jaw locked. His breath hitched once, sharp and quiet, but loud enough for the front row to hear it. Her face wasn't shown to the crowd. Only Elias saw. Only him. The shawl dropped back down. The platform felt colder, somehow, beneath the boiling sun. The woman bowed her head. Elias didn't move, didn't speak. Dust swirled around them like it knew something the others didn't. The auctioneer swallowed hard. Mr. Thorne? You all right? Elias didn't answer. He only turned, slow, deliberate, and motioned for the woman to follow. And as the two walked off the platform, the wind carried the hushed whisper through Hollow Bend. What did he see? The wagon wheels screamed against the rocky trail as the horses fought the climb, dust rising in thick clouds that swallowed the road behind them. Elias kept his eyes forward, reins gripped too tight, knuckles white beneath the grime. The woman beside him, Mara, sat with her hands resting neatly in her lap, shawl drawn close again. Neither spoke. Wind pushed grit into Elias's teeth, but he didn't loosen his jaw. Every time he glanced toward Mara, the memory of what he'd seen beneath that shawl burned behind his eyes like a brand. A canyon wall rose to their right, redstone streaked like old blood, casting long shadows over the wagon. The horses snorted nervously, picking up their pace without being asked. Something in the air felt wrong. Elias could feel it along the back of his neck. Mara felt it too. Her chin lifted the smallest amount. You keep looking over your shoulder, she said, voice barely louder than the wind. Someone following us? Elias didn't answer. His gaze flicked to the trail behind them, to the way dust settled too slowly, as if disturbed by more than wind. He flicked the reins again. The wagon jerked forward. A full minute passed before she spoke again. Do you fear me, Mr. Thorne? The question hit harder than it had any right to. Elias shifted, boots scraping the wooden footboard. Doesn't matter what I fear, he muttered. You froze when you saw my face. He didn't deny it. The canyon opened into a stretch of pale desert, the horizon wavering with heat. The sun paced overhead like it was stalking them. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, but didn't slow the horses. I know that look, Mara said quietly. Men wear it when they recognize something they wish they hadn't. Elias's breath tightened. I recognize the scar pattern, he said, voice rough. One I've seen before. Mara's hands tightened in her lap. The wagon hit a rut and jolted hard, throwing both of them forward. Elias grabbed the seat. Mara didn't flinch, didn't reach for anything to steady herself. Her balance was too sure for someone in used to danger. A shadow flickered on the ridge. Elias yanked the reins, bringing the horses to a slow crawl. The air went dead still, the kind of stillness that made silence louder. Mara's eyes followed the ridge. "They found me," she whispered. Elias turned sharply. "You expecting someone?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached beneath the seat and pulled out a shotgun, his shotgun, breaking it open with practiced hands. The clean click of metal rang through the heat. Elias stared. "You know how to use that?" She snapped it shut in one smooth motion. "I know how to survive." The shadow on the ridge vanished. Elias clicked the reins again, faster this time. "We'll camp ahead," he said. "Canyon narrows there." Mara nodded, but didn't lower the shotgun. The trail stretched before them, hot, empty, and trembling with the promise of something closing in. Neither of them looked back again. Elias rolled behind a boulder just as a bullet chipped the stone beside his ear. Sparks spat into the sand. The fire he'd built moments earlier was already kicked over, embers scattering like angry stars across the ground. Mara didn't crouch. She moved, fast. Her silhouette cut through the shadows with the precision of someone who'd lived too long in them. She fired once, lantern blown clean off the wooden crate it sat on. Darkness swallowed everything in an instant. "Stay low," she hissed. Elias could barely track her. A flash of movement, a whisper of cloth, a shadow flowing into deeper shadow. Bandits were shouting now, angry, startled curses bouncing off the canyon walls. "Find her," one of them barked. A shot replied before the order finished. A man dropped. Elias didn't see Mara, only the muzzle flare lighting the curve of the canyon like lightning trapped in stone. Elias's pulse hammered. He had no gun. He'd left the life behind years ago. But the old instincts clawed their way to the surface. He scanned the ridges for shapes, breaths, glints of metal. Another figure lunged. Elias grabbed a fallen branch and swung hard. The man crumpled, groaning. Mara's voice cut through the dark. "Elias, left ridge." He looked up just in time to see a rifle glint. He dove sideways as the shot screamed past, tearing a chunk from the boulder where his head had been. More footsteps, more shifting sand. Then silence. A terrible, listening silence. Elias turned, straining to see anything. "Mara," he whispered. A figure stepped toward the dying firelight. For a heartbeat, he thought it was a bandit. Then she lifted her shotgun, resting the barrel against the ground. Mara, breathless but steady. Her shawl had slipped from the side of her face, revealing the scars, deep, burned, twisted like melted wax. Elias froze the same way he had on the auction platform, but now there was no shock, only understanding creeping into his expression. She pulled the shawl back down a little too late. "There's no time for fear," she said, but her voice trembled once, barely. Elias stepped closer. "You said they found you. What?" Mara hesitated, the fire's last ember glow flickering against her damaged cheek. "Because I escaped them. Years ago." A shout echoed in the canyon, distant but closing. She continued, voice low and breaking. "They took me young, forced me to ride with them, forced me to wear a mask during raids." A breath quivered. "I tried to warn your brother that day. I tried, Elias. He didn't hear me in time." Elias felt the world tilt. The canyon massacre, Jonah, the face in the flames, the mask, the scars. Mara shook her head. "I didn't kill him. I ran. They burned me for it." The canyon wind moaned. Boots scraped rock in the distance, bandits regrouping. Elias looked at her, long and quiet, then reached for the old gun belt inside the wagon. He buckled it on. Mara stared as he tightened the strap. "You swore never to." "Some oaths break when truth shows its face," he said. The canyon filled with approaching footsteps. Mara lifted her shotgun. Elias lifted his revolver. And together, they turned toward the sound of the coming storm. Elias stepped out on a hollow Bend's main road, dust swirling around his boots as if the earth itself trembled under the weight of what was coming. Mara walked beside him, face half-shadowed, shotgun gripped tight. The townsfolk hid behind shutters, peering through cracks as riders thundered into view. 10, maybe more, kicking up a storm of dirt as they swept toward the center of town. The gang slowed to a crawl. Horses snorted clouds of steam into the chilled dawn air. At their head sat Red Vesper, scar-branded, neck gleaming like fresh iron. He grinned when he saw Elias. "Well now," Vesper drawled. "Look who picked his guns back up." Elias didn't answer. His revolver hung loose at his side, but ready. Vesper's grin widened, until his eyes slid to the woman standing beside Elias. The grin died. "You," he snarled. "The ghost girl." Mara didn't blink. "You should have finished the job when you burned me." A ripple of unease rolled through the gang. Saddles creaked. Spurs jingled. Several men shifted, nudged each other, suddenly less sure of themselves. Vesper spat into the dust. "Grab her." He didn't get the second word out. Mara fired. The shot ripped through the morning air, splintering a post inches from Vesper's knee. Warning so precise it froze the entire street. Chaos exploded. Bandits dismounted in a fury, guns drawn. Bullets tore into signs and window frames. Glass shattered. Horses screamed. The street became a whirlwind of smoke and recoil. Elias moved with the practice speed he thought he'd buried years ago, ducking behind a water trough, firing twice, dropping a bandit near the well. His revolver bucked like an old friend. He felt the years fall off with every pull of the trigger. But Mara was something else. She was the storm. She advanced through gunfire like she'd memorized every bullet's path. She fired once, twice, using ricochets off the metal pump to strike two men taking cover behind barrels. She shouted for Elias to move right. He did, and a shot meant for his chest tore harmlessly through his coat sleeve instead. Bandits panicked. "She ain't human," someone yelled. Mara didn't respond. She only reloaded with terrifying calm, eyes never leaving her targets. Vesper tried to retreat, dragging his horse toward the alley. Mara saw. She sprinted, faster than Elias expected, cutting off Vesper's escape, forcing him toward the canyon edge behind the saloon. The dust settled enough for Elias to see her corner him there, shotgun raised. Vesper's hands trembled around his pistol. "You are nothing," he spat. "A tool. A mask. A scarred-up mistake." Mara stepped closer, voice steady as carved stone. "You burned my face to break me, but all you did was forge me." Vesper lifted his gun. He never fired. Mara's shot echoed across Hollow Bend, rolling off the canyon walls like thunder, calling the dawn. Silence followed. Elias approached slowly. Townsfolk emerged from hiding, staring not at him, but at her. The unwanted bride. The ghost girl. The survivor. Elias met her eyes. No fear this time. Only respect. Only truth. Mara lowered her shotgun, breath steady, shoulders finally unburdened. And in the settling dust, Hollow Bend understood what the legend would say for generations. The bride nobody wanted was the hero the frontier needed.